Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this session, Statement Pieces. I am so thrilled to introduce you to the lovely Azza Al Qubaisi, an Emirati jewellery designer, Sophia Webster, and Francesca Cartier Brickell. We are so thankful to our speakers for coming and joining us here today. Thank you, ladies, for making it. Although, Sophia, I think you have brought the rain from London. And Francesca, that's okay, we'll forgive you. So to start, microphones, that would help, wouldn't it? Thank you. It's okay, I will continue. To start over here on my left, we have the award-winning artist, Azza Al Qubaisi. Azza is a jewellery artist, a product designer, and a sculptor. She has a BA in jewellery design and allied crafts from London Guildhall University. As a creator of wearable art, Azza is often referred to as the first Emirati jewellery artist. Welcome, Azza. Thank you for joining us. Next to me, thanks, ladies and gentlemen, we have the wonderful Francesca Cartier Brickell. We can see from this gorgeous video behind me. Now, Francesca's, I've got to get all the greats right here, great-great-great-grandfather, Louis-François Cartier, founded Cartier in 1847. Cartier is one of the few global brands to remain family-owned until the fourth generation. Francesca, who graduated in English literature from Oxford, spent a decade writing and researching the Cartiers, this incredible book which follows the discovery of a trunk of letters in her grandfather's cellar on his 90th birthday. Jean-Jacques was the son of Jacques Cartier, Francesca's great-grandfather, and the youngest of the three brothers, Louis, Pierre, and Jacques, who transformed Cartier into a global luxury destination. The Cartiers is the story of how they did that, and it really serves as a unique perspective on world-changing global events, as well as it's almost a business manual. So I really encourage you to pick it up, and a study in psychology as well, and creativity. And finally, last but not least, in the center, we have Sophia Webster. Sophia launched her eponymous shoe brand, and a quick check here, in 2012, and her joyous creations have been worn by everyone from Rihanna to Beyonce, Kim Kardashian to J-Lo, and my personal favorite, Taylor Swift. Big shout out to the Swifties, I know you're out there. Sophia graduated from the London College of Fashion and the Royal College of Art and is globally renowned for her unique, creative, and uplifting designs. Sophia has won numerous awards and collaborated with the likes of Puma, Barbie, and Coca-Cola. Iconic. Sophia lives in East London with her husband and business partner, Bobby, and their three daughters, Bibi, Lilo, and Roses, and the family Frenchie, who is also on Instagram at Rio Rococo. Follow Sophia's Frenchie on Instagram. Her gorgeous book, Oh My Gosh, I Love Your Shoes, was born out of an art project, sketching one shoe from her archive per day during 2021. These illustrations are a beautiful fold-out within the book, but as she sketched, she realized there were so many memories and stories from each shoe's creation, which eventually became the book. It is utterly joyous, and I am so happy to have Sophia here today. Introductions over. Thank you, ladies. Thank you so much for being here. So on to the session. This is entitled Statement Pieces, the Language of Fashion. We are here at a literature festival. We are talking about language. So what are the first words that your brand says? Sophia, let's start with you.
I think it's quite tough to sum it up in 3 words, but I probably go for creative, spirited, and feminine.
Creative, spirited, and feminine. Beautiful. Francesca, now I know you're not involved in Cartier in its modern day icon, but as a brand throughout the history of Cartier, what's its language to you?
I asked my grandfather this actually, because I said, looking back at the jewels and the watches and the objets that my family created, they're so different, right? You can have a tiny tie pin, an enormous tiara, a tank watch, a crash watch, a mystery clock. And I said, you know how do you explain this? And he said, well, that was part of the design process. When you were an apprentice, you had to spend 7 years learning how to design Cartier jewels, and it's a sense of kind of symmetry and proportion and certain elegance. But I mean, he also said, and I think this is more of a kind of catchphrase, he said that their family motto, if you like, was never copy, only create. So the idea was you could take inspiration from everywhere, but you could never take it from other jewelers, other jewelry that was out there.
Fantastic. And Azza, what is the language of your brand?
Well, I think it definitely...
Let's just check. Is it on?
Well, I think for me it's all about being inspirational, bold, and reflecting identity and telling stories through the pieces I create.
I think we can see that really illustrated beautifully
Yes.
here as well. Fantastic. So we are here at the Emirates Festival of Literature in the UAE. Azza is from the UAE. Sophia and Francesca are from different parts of the UK. How do the three of you, how does your work, your creations of the brand, represent the culture or the identity that is at the brand's heart? Obviously, Francesca is speaking from the point of view of a brand that you are a historian in rather than a creator of. Sophia, let's start with you. How does your brand represent your culture, your identity?
So the brand is very much rooted in London, and I hail from a family of Londoners. So I think the thing that's really special about London, and in particular London fashion, is the rebelliousness, and obviously growing up, we've had like Vivienne Westwood, Alexander McQueen. There's so many designers that are their sort of authentic selves, and they just follow, they're very true to themselves. So I would say, and there's a lot of support there as well with the British Fashion Council and their New Gen sponsorship, which I was given from my first season. So that's a platform that starts you off showing at London Fashion Week for first few seasons, and that's great because it gives you exposure to buyers and press, and they very much encourage you to be as bold as you can and be fearless. And also just the location of where my studio is in Shoreditch. It's probably the heart of like street art in London, so there's forever new artworks and vibrance and just diversity completely surrounding you. So it's a very, very inspirational place to be.
Fantastic. Switching entirely from modern-day London to 20th century Paris, maybe, and 19th century even, Cartier, Francesca. How does Cartier represent its roots in Paris, where it all began?
Yes, I think Pierre Cartier, one of the Cartier brothers, says, one had to breathe the air of Paris to kind of understand the Cartier designs. And even though they end up having branches in London and New York as well, the designers often hailed originally from Paris, and then they taught the other designers in the other locations. And he said the importance was Paris with that sense of symmetry. He says you have a symmetry in Paris that you totally lack in New York. In New York, you have a skyscraper next to a small building. That would have never happened in Paris. We're talking back in the early 20th century. Obviously, things have changed. And so it's that sense of symmetry that was so important. And I love the fact that Louis Cartier, when he was hiring designers for Cartier, he didn't hire jewelry designers. He was like, no, because that's not what we want to do. We want to bring something new to jewelry. So he went out and he hired lacework designers, pottery makers. His best designer, Charles Jacobs, who ended up being the most important designer for Cartier and coming up with really the Cartier style along with Louis, he found him up a railing. So Louis Cartier was walking along the street one day in Paris, and he saw this beautiful balcony being erected, and he looked up and said, that is beautiful, who designed that? And the guy at the top who was fixing it said, well, the designer is just here. And Louis said, oh, can you come down, please? And the designer was this guy called Charles Jacobs, and Charles said, no, I can't, I'm busy working. And Louis was not used to being kept waiting, but he wanted to meet this guy, so he stood at the bottom waiting, and eventually Charles Jacobs came down and said, well, what is it? And Louis said, I want you to come in to Cartier for an interview. And Charles is like, are you mad? I'm not a jewelry designer. And he said, no, I like what you're doing, come in. And Charles said, well, no, I'm on this contract. I'm working here for another 6 months. And Louis said, okay, well, when you're finished, come in. And sure enough, he went in and he had this interview, which was a whole other story in itself. But he got the job, and he ended up becoming, as I say, this most influential Cartier designer. And I think it's really interesting to look at the architecture of Paris. So Louis told his designers, go and wander around Paris. Don't look in your competitors' windows, look up. Look at the balconies, look at the ironwork, look at the carvings. And so you can see in their sketches, what they're sketching is not other jewels, but they're sketching balconies. And I think in this photo you can just see roughly how the shape of a balcony could inspire the shape of a tiara. But they also went traveling all over the world. And so my great-grandfather Jacques spent a lot of time in this region because he was looking for pearls. But his photo albums of this region are really interesting. He takes pictures of people he meets, but also just of the surroundings he sees. And he does little sketches in his diary. And you can just see how the shapes of the architecture here inspire the designs on, for example, here on a clock. So the idea is really just to take inspiration from all around you. And yeah, I think they did that.
That illustrates it perfectly. Thank you, Francesca. Azza, could we have a hand on this microphone, please? Anyone? You can share.
I think for me, as an artist, higher. Okay. So as an artist, to me, my design is definitely, I don't think of who I'm designing it for. I'm trying to just, as an artist, reflect on my thoughts and my ideas. And because I'm able to create something with my hands without the need of any other person, I go through my own journeys, through my own experimentation. So it's the material. It's, of course, my inspiration revolves around my environment, my identity, and trying to showcase who I am in a modern Emirati context. And I think because of that, I was able to go through a lot of journeys working with so many materials, even, I would say from asphalt, sand, name it, I've most likely worked with. And in this piece here, this is a piece I've done in probably 2006. And that piece is a piece that grew in size. I see it's still like a piece that is inspired by the jewelry itself, but that I've done a couple of years afterwards. So I think with the mediums and materials I work, my work evolves as well with me in scale, in size, and it's not about, unlike, like jewelry, they talk about the diamonds and the quality. To me, it's the beauty, it's the story I'm trying to tell within the pieces.
And the specifically Emirati materials that you use, could you tell? I
definitely use a lot of local materials. I wouldn't identify gold as Emirati, but gold is mainly coming from Africa. But I would say the theme, even the agra wood, the oud that I use in my work does not come from the UAE, but is part of our culture and identity. It is evolving with us and changing, but again, it's a material and a medium that is so precious. Some of it reaches the price of gold per gram. So to me, taking that aspect and reflecting it within my work is quite important.
And I know you're certainly trailblazing in that arena, so we're so lucky to have you here today to tell us about it. Now, art underpins everything that the three of you do, or Cartier, it's very much all of your brands are artistic at their heart. How do you reconcile the relationship between art, this higher form that everyone aspires to, and commerce? Because ultimately, Cartier became a global success, a hugely well-known brand. You are selling product. So how do you reconcile that push-pull between art and commerce? Sophia, over to you on the flamingo.
So I think since I was a student, I'd always done a lot of work placements alongside my studies. So from quite a young age, I was very familiar with the limitations of shoe design, and I think that sort of set me apart a little bit at college, or maybe it was a bit of a sticking point for my tutors in a way, because they were always encouraging us to really, think outside the box and, just to really like push the boundaries. And there was students alongside me at the Royal College of Art that, were designing like glass heels and these really crazy shoes. But for me, it was always very, very important that a shoe is wearable. Otherwise, it's a sculpture, and I like to kind of meet somewhere in the middle. So when I was younger at art college, I studied fine art and sculpture before I kind of fell into shoes via a life drawing class where we had a fashion model, and I just was focused on drawing the shoes. So shoes for me is a great combination of art and form and function, let's say. And I do try to push the boundaries of that and create very sculptural heels that look like little pieces of art, but they're comfortable and they're wearable, and that's basically my goal, is to kind of meet somewhere in the middle.
And they sell. You can have them on your feet and on a shelf as well, looking gorgeous.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sophia. Francesca, I know that particularly with the three brothers, Louis, Pierre, and Jean-Jacques, there was this push-pull, right, between what's commercial and then what's conceptual. And they had some interesting ideas around that.
I mean, I think it varies through time as well, right? Because in a period where you have people with an enormous amount of wealth who are willing to spend, almost anything on jewels, and they want the most extravagant jewels because it helps cement their place in society, or it's a symbol of power, or it's a symbol of love, whatever, then Cartier can, they can follow their artistic dreams and create something absolutely extraordinary. But then, say, the 1930s, the Great Depression hits, people don't have that money anymore. So they're having to, in New York, Pierre does something totally unexpected. He starts a $5 department in a store that's used to selling jewels worth thousands, hundreds of thousands. So he creates objects that are much cheaper, and, in order to keep customers, in order to not go under. But he still creates pieces in the Cartier style. He's still true to that Cartier style, and it may be, a simple silver christening spoon, but it's still got to be beautiful. It's still got to be silver. It just doesn't have diamonds on it. So when my grandfather took over Cartier London after the Second World War, it was a terrible time to take over a jewellery business. Taxes were over 100% at one time. I mean, can you imagine trying to selling jewels at that? People were still having, rations. No one was buying jewellery, and even the people who could afford it didn't want to because it was seen as inappropriate. So what did he do? He still was brought up with this artistic sense and wanting to make beautiful things, but he said, okay, let's switch to more practical items. And he started building up the watches in London, and those Cartier London watches are now reaching records at auctions, watches like the Crash watch and so on. So he was still true to this idea of never copy any create, do something different, do something beautiful, but just kind of shifted the focus a bit.
Yes, so it is possible to combine the two. Azza, you, as we know, are both an artist and a jewellery designer, hybrid in one, creating both sculptures and smaller scale pieces of jewellery. How do you combine the two disciplines?
I think for me it's a matter of, being an artist and financing my art. It's not cheap to create jewelry to start with. And being independent, not going for the usual jobs out there. So for me to do that, I had to think out of the box. I didn't have anybody to follow the way through and to use as an inspiration for what I will do next. So I had to think out of the box. And for me, I realized, well, I can do design. I mean, I studied it, but instead of doing, one-off, I started listening to the people. So through the exhibitions, people would come to me and say, oh, this is so beautiful, extremely expensive. Who would buy that? I was like, somebody, inshallah. and they would say, but it would be lovely if we can have 100 pieces to give away. I was like, why do you give away? They go, we give away gifts, So different people would give away gifts, and I was like, okay, thinking of it, I'm an artist, I do one-off. So I had to start thinking in a commercial way where I wasn't. And from that, I started creating those products per customer. I still do that up to date. And from there, I created my brand Argemist, which is producing product exclusively for different clients to give away, which represent the UAE. They carry my style, they somehow reflect a bit of my art, but in the other end, affordable, nicely packaged, have everything the client wants in the piece. So it's my way of surviving as an artist and being independent. So I found my way, I created, let's say, my way. And that's where I am at the moment.
I think that's a common thread between all three. It's finding your own way and making this passion work, both commercially, this artistic urge. Staying with you, Azza, here we are in the UAE. Jewelry and accessories are so important in this community, in this culture. Women here maybe embrace jewelry and accessories in a different way, perhaps, to others in the world. For starters, I was going to say it doesn't rain, so you can wear fantastic shoes like this, although today it is raining, so that comment doesn't quite work. But normally, you maybe, Sophia, you want to run around London in these if it's chucking it down with rain, but in Dubai we can wear butterfly shoes pretty much every day of the year except today. So Azza, what's your take on the way women here in this part of the world treat jewelry and accessories?
It's essential, just like, what's that? Yes, okay. So it's essential, just like drinking water. It is that important. I don't think there is a house here that does not have gold. It's that important. The first gift a baby girl gets is gold. Whether you have a lot of money or not, doesn't matter. You'll get a gram of gold or half a gram of gold or something in gold. So I think the culture of jewelry, gold, showing it is a big part. Maybe, I lived in London for 5 years, and it changed how I wear my jewelry. I own it, I don't have to wear it. And this is how we're evolving. You don't have to show what you own. And I think that comes with time and maturity of any culture. But we celebrate, within a year, they will have to buy 2 to 3 pieces. They'll have to show them off. We've got our Eid, we've got our, ceremonies, weddings, and jewelry is like, if not the most important part of any of these celebrations, especially for women. Men jewelry is coming in, it's picking up, but it is essential, just like air and water.
Just like air and water. I agree. Also shoes, I think, we can add to
definitely.
that. We can add to that list. Sophia, I know that you've met some clients, some customers while you've been over here. What's your take on the way shoes are worn and sold in this part of the world?
The Middle East has been a very successful region for the brand since its inception. So it was the first place that I ever actually visited to do a store event and meet customers. And I just think that Emirati women have a very sort of elevated sense of style. And I know that I think there's something about the character of the shoes and the embellishments. I don't know. It's a way to get your personality across, I think, in your footwear. And when I speak to the personal shoppers in the stockists here, they do often say that they will start with the shoes when they're putting together, a look for a function or something. So I think that my shoes definitely lend themselves to that.
Absolutely. Now, staying on the regional tangent, I want to move on to pearls. Because when I was thinking about the three of you together, there is a common thread in the use of pearls, which are also so resonant in this part of the world. So I'm going to start with Azza. Azza, I'd like you to talk to us about this collection. if you wouldn't mind.
I think this one fits better with the accessories, but I mean the one before that is all about the, it's called Angel Tears, and it's all about the divers. I mean, in the region we talk about traders and the pearl harvesting, but nobody talks about the poor people that got those pearls out of the sea. And to me, I just felt that, you know, somebody needs to give them a bit of credit. They've put their life on the line. They did all the diving, and I wanted each piece that I created to tell an aspect that they lost for others, you know, to be adorned with those beautiful pearls. Even for this series, I physically started going and meeting divers modern day to collect some of those natural pearls. So they're not cultured pearls, they're actually natural, and I know the divers who even got them out of the sea. They don't do it for business, they do it for pleasure. So to me, it's, you know, like this one is like silence and this one is life. And I used even like techniques like cuttlefish, so things that even are relevant to the sea itself. It's a very Asian technique where you use the cuttlefish bone as a mold itself, so you carve into it. And I wanted to somehow, you know, celebrate what they've done for us and also keep their story alive. You know, they lost their life, they lost the ability to hear, see, so many different things that nobody mentions when you wear all these beautiful pearls. So I wanted to take that and put it in pieces that would be timeless and tell their stories in a way.
Well, it's wonderful that you are continuing those stories because they do date back a long time, and there is no one better to tell us this than Francesca. So Francesca, talk to us about the history of pearls throughout Cartier and how important they were to the business.
Yeah, I think, I was quite shocked when I started the research just quite how big a part of Cartier's income pearls were for the first few decades, because pearls back in the early 20th century, this is before cultured pearls had exploded onto the market in the 1920s. Before then, there were only natural pearls. And natural pearls were incredibly hard to find. The best ones came from the Persian Gulf, or so my family believed. And they were incredibly valuable. So a pearl was worth 4 times the price of a diamond of the same size. And they were valuable because they were, as I say, hard to find. So making one necklace, for example, this necklace in the middle, Grandpa said that could easily take 10 years to find enough pearls of the same color and the same size and the same tone to make one necklace. So you can see why they were so valuable. And in America, heiresses wore them as in strings as kind of evidence of their wealth and their standing in society. They were the biggest status symbol. So Cartier decided if they really wanted to be the best jeweler in the world, they had to have the best pearls in the world. It was the most important stone. And my great-grandfather was sent out to this region by his older brother in 1911. And this is him in Bahrain, and he went there. He came to Dubai as well. There was pretty much a desert at that stage, and to Oman and to lots of the countries in the region. But he found the best pearls in Bahrain, and he met the pearl dealers, the pearl sheiks. Here he is sitting with them. And it was really important for him to meet them. And he also went out on a pearl fishing boat and met the divers. As you said, he really wanted to find out about their lives. And he did find it was incredibly dangerous. And he wrote all about it in his diaries. He wrote back to his son about it. And it was just, such an important part of Cartier's history. And I had this photo that you see here. Sorry, you see it behind me, I see it there. I had it blown up. It was in black and white. This is a colorized version. But in a really big, I had it blown up. Grandpa gave me the photo with his writing on the back saying, "Daddy with the pearl sheiks." But I had it blown up big size, and it was sitting in my study as I wrote my book. So every day when I wrote my book, and writing a book can be a bit of a solitary experience to lock myself away. The only people I saw were these kind of 4 men and my great-grandfather. And when I was writing, I thought, but when I finish this book, I'm going to go and find where that photo was taken, and I'm going to go and find the descendants of those people. And I did it. So a couple of years ago, I went out and we got all the descendants together, and we basically redid that photo. And some of them are still in the pearl business today, some of them aren't. They were kind of scattered all over the region. Everyone flew back to do that photo. It was incredibly moving. Yeah. Oh, the funny thing is, you see he has a cigarette. We had to like run around to look for a cigarette. My mum was like, have you taken up smoking? Like, no, it's for the photo.
I absolutely love it. And these are direct descendants.
They're all the direct descendants, so we're all the great-grandchildren. And it was really moving. I was asked to give a kind of little talk, and I felt really moved because it's like so long, you know, and he'd written the diaries about them all, and I'd had those diaries, and it's my connection to him, you know. I never met him. And they all felt the same way, and they all remembered their grandfather talking about this great visit of a Cartier who came to... So for them, it was such an important part of their history. And obviously for me, it became this really important part. So, yeah, so there's Jack on the pearl fishing boat. So that's the thing, they were never used to a kind of a important jeweller wanting to go on the fishing boat, but that's what he wanted to do. Jack was a really good man. He wanted to become a priest, a Catholic priest, and his brothers were like, like your duty is to our brotherly Trinity, not to the Holy Trinity. So he had to go into the business, but he was a good man and he really cared about people. He did the same when he went to Sri Lanka and went to the sapphire mines. He actually went down the mines, checked everyone was safe. And this was quite fun. So he went on the pearl fishing boat and he took lots of photos. And he used one of these photos on the marketing of Cartier London jewels because he wanted to show, I can't overestimate how important pearls were. And if he was able to show that Cartier were pearl importers, they were importing from the source, it made them much more important in the mind of their customers. And this was a time when Cartier, you know, Cartier is so well known today. They weren't always so well known. They had to build that reputation. How do you build the reputation? You build it by having some of the best pieces in the world, the best stones. Yeah, and then I tried the pearl diving myself.
Did you find any?
I did, but tiny. But I mean, I could even really see them. Someone helped me. Look, there's one, and I was like, really? but no, it was really fun. But I mean, it's so time-consuming. Yeah, so this is one of the descendants of the guy who I was with in the photo, one of the descendants of the pearl dealers that Jack, my great-grandfather, had met. And he's still in the pearl business, Matar, in Bahrain, and they had this phenomenal necklace. And I said, how long did that take to make? And he's like, generations, because it's all natural pearls. It's phenomenal.
How many do you have any?
I can't remember if there are 13 or 17 strands in that one, but it's something phenomenal.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you, Francesca. And from jewellery to shoes, pearls do live on with Sophia. How gorgeous are those? Talk to us about pearls and your brand, Sophia.
Yeah, so the heel in that photo is my perla heel. It's on a very elaborate upper, the top of the shoe on that. But we do that heel across lots of different styles. So very simple uppers with like 3 straps, or the platform version does very well. And I think it's just because they offer such a understated glamour, I would say, and it's a very chic and classic alternative to crystals on shoes. And definitely for my bridal range, the pearl heel just does exceptionally well. It's just constantly in production and selling out, and I believe that's just because it offers like total timelessness, which I think, you know, for a bridal look, for the, you know, something that's you're gonna have photos of forever and celebrate again and again, I think pearls are like the perfect choice for that.
It's so interesting, the interplay between fashion, ready-to-wear, couture, and accessories, and shoes and jewellery. Cartier said that they design for the dressed, not the undressed women. Was it Louis, I believe, who said that? So the designs did evolve with fashion despite being timeless. Talk us through that, Francesca. How does that interplay between fashion and jewellery play out?
No, it's really interesting, isn't it? Because, you know, they were artists, these designers. So as an artist, you want to create beautiful pieces. But of course, you've got to adapt to dresses, to what people are wearing at the time. So when Cartier started, when the Cartier brothers first came on the scene in the early 20th century, and they were really designing their own pieces for the first time, they were, that's when women were wearing corsets, right? We're back pre-World War I, and they had big hair updos. So what you had is you had a big tiara on top of the head, on top of all the hair piled up in a tiara, and it could be quite heavy, and it sat on top of the hair really. And then on your corset, or you could have quite a heavy, big diamond brooch, like a Devant de corsage, some beautiful diamond big brooches. Then you have the First World War and kind of women being a bit more liberated, and the fashions change, Coco Chanel, etc. It comes along, and women are suddenly cutting their hair short. You can't put a big tiara on, it doesn't work. So you have a bandeau which sits over the forehead. Suddenly you have the space to play with earrings because you can see the ears again. Instead of, you can't hang a big brooch on a silk flapper dress. Instead you make a long kind of sautoir necklace. So you're using the same gems, but in a different way. There was a big emerald tiara that a Russian Grand Duchess had, and when that was smuggled out of Russia in the Russian Revolution and sold back to Cartier, Cartier then made it into a sautoir necklace for an American heiress. So it's using the same gems, but you're changing what you're doing with them. And in the same way, when women were suddenly, it was pre-World War I, it was very frowned upon for women to smoke or to wear makeup in public. That wasn't done, and then suddenly it was done, and you were allowed to do that. So Cartier started creating beautiful little cigarette cases and vanity cases, like a precursor to the handbag for women to carry around their rouge and their lipstick. So as kind of fashions and cultures changed, you can create different pieces.
And we see fashion here, particularly among the Emirati culture, as a change a lot over recent years. How does your jewellery work with changing codes and styles in this region?
I mean, I suppose my work, because maybe I'm not too bothered of who is planning to buy my piece that much, I create what I personally love. And I'm not an earring person, for example, but I've designed earrings and I've done earrings. So I push myself, let's put it that way. I push myself, I try to create things that definitely fit what I'm trying to tell through those pieces. A lot of my pieces, I would say, are definitely day-to-day jewelry rather than the, gigantic big pieces, but I do them. Sometimes I feel, I have to, just for the sake of, pushing the boundaries and creating a big piece. But I think my pieces are, in a way, timeless for the generation I'm living in. I mean, 2 decades ago, when I started with this series, people laughed at it. They just said, what, we go buy it expensive and then burn it, and then what, you will replace it? And I was like, no. One day you will realize oud is expensive. Your kids will never even have the opportunity to smell it. And they go, haha, that's not true. So to me, after 2 decades, people are coming back and saying, Azza, you're so true, with what you said. I mean, now they have the, I won't say very real, but they introduce fungus into the tree to create the oud and all that. But it's not as quality as the past, like as the oud I created 20 years ago. So things change, and value of materials and their cultural relevance to me is important. Design evolves with me, big, small, how we wear it, I suppose, objects sometimes, but it evolves, I suppose, yeah.
Brilliant. Now, Baby Spice of Spice Girls fame, as we come back to Sophia, Emma Bunton, she says, Sophia's designs are so special, you work your outfit around them. So the shoes come first and then the outfit. Is that right, Sophia?
Yeah, I think it depends. I think it depends on the person wearing them. So I think if you're like very sort of self-confident and you like to, express yourself with your outfits, then I think shoes are actually a good option for if you if you want to say something about yourself, but maybe you don't have the confidence to wear like a big printed dress or funky outfit, it's just like you can kind of do it in a more subtle way. And I definitely think that for me it's all about like the styling of the shoe, I think, and the fabrication. I mean, what you can see here is it's the same shoe, and if you add color blocking or contrasting print and texture in the zebra and leopard and pink, then it's very wild design. But then you can do that exact same shoe in a black calf, and it's very sexy, it's very chic. So I think a lot of the time it's the way that the shoe is fabricated and what that says about it.
Definitely. And Azza and Sophia, you have very different brand identities. How do you hold on to your brand identity, Azza, in a changing environment with digital media, with fashions changing? How do you hold on to your personal brand identity?
I suppose make it visible as much as possible. It's not easy, but I think as artists and as community, we try to somehow connect and support one another. Definitely did not exist a decade ago. I mean, with social media, for example, I had the opportunity to collaborate with a Ramadan soap opera, and the whole story revolves about this necklace and pearl, and I mean, I designed it from A to Z and did the parts and the wax pieces, and for 30 days people were watching this and wondering. I mean, they see my name in the end when they put the names and all that. So to me, to try to stay trendy and out there, even if I'm not even producing it or selling it at that time when it was shown, I still try my best to show the community where design can be and how it fits. And I suppose as artists, we somehow collaborate to keep it visible, whether it's through storytelling or through wearing them or showing them in different events. But try to say we're here. We will change things, but we need to support somehow.
Hold on to your story and celebrate your story. And Sophia, your brand identity, how the business has been going now for over a decade.
Yeah.
How do you hold on to your brand identity and keep it identifiable through that time?
Yeah, I think I've always wanted the brand to have a very strong DNA, and I mean, you can see here that is a picture from when I was at the Royal College of Art, and that was actually the first time that I had thought about putting butterfly wings on the back of a shoe, and that concept came from me. I always knew that I wanted to have my own line, and I knew that I wanted something that was very identifiable. And obviously, we have like Louboutin red soles, and Roger Vivier has the buckle. And I thought, what am I going to have? And then when I did that, I was like, yeah, I think that's it. That's like such a beautiful silhouette, and then the theme of butterflies just runs through my collection. And other things that I like flamingos and vibrant colours. And it's so strange actually, because at that time, butterflies, I mean, I love butterflies, but they didn't really have, the significance has kind of grown, I think, like with the brand. It's very strange. So I actually only found out a couple of years ago that my through a pocket watch that was left by my great granduncle to my grandparents, and that he was a butterfly explorer. So he actually discovered butterflies. So yeah, that was really bizarre, because my great grandparents, like one of them had a fruit and veg stall, and the other, my great grandma, she played piano in pubs in South London. So to think that we have this, somebody that's with such a sort of colourful and interesting and totally relevant significance is it was absolutely mind-blowing. And then I went to see the butterfly curator at the Natural History Museum, and I met with her, and she actually showed me the butterflies that he had discovered. So yeah, it was kind of very on like a very almost like cellular level. It was mind-blowing that there's that significance there, and that's why it I think also the ability to evolve with butterflies. There's definitely people and women that buy the shoes for that significance. We see a lot of graduates, they'll have their gowns and their hats, and then they've got their butterfly shoes, and the caption's always like, ready to spread my wings and things like that. So it's just so lovely to see people embracing that brand DNA that's so meaningful to me and so significant, and embracing that in their shoe choices for their special moments, for graduations, weddings. That really is so full circle. And I think as long as there's real authenticity and meaning behind what you do, then it doesn't really matter like what the trends are or things like that. I think you're going to have that connection with your customers.
Yeah, I mean, speaking to and connecting to your customers is so important, I'm sure, for all of you. And has been for hundreds of years, a great example of this is the Cartier Hope Diamond. And the very clever Pierre Cartier. Francesca, tell us about how Pierre managed to sell this cursed diamond.
Yeah, so this was a very notorious stone because it was meant to be a cursed diamond, and it was large, very large, blue cursed diamond, very expensive. Cartier was pretty much unknown in New York at this time. This is early 20th century. Pierre had opened a branch in New York, but completely unknown. We can see how unknown it was because there was a newspaper article from this time when Pierre married his wife, Elma. Elma was a rich American heiress. The Cartiers married very well. That's one of the reasons of their successes. But he married this American heiress, and the New York Times article says, "Foreigner to wed heiress." And basically the article is all about the heiress, and doesn't mention Pierre. It mentions him, Pierre Cartier, his name. Doesn't mention he's a jeweler or anything, let alone that he's just starting a jewelry firm in New York. So you can just see by that how completely unknown Cartier was at that stage. So how do you make this unknown jewelry company, of which there are many, into the leading jewelry firm in the city, in the country? The Cartiers did not believe in advertising, by the way. They did not believe in putting their name in a newspaper or a magazine. Louis Cartier felt very strongly about this. He said, look, we want to appeal to royalty, and whether you're a Maharaja or Grand Duchess of Russia or the Queen of England, you're not going to want to see your jeweler in a magazine that other people are looking at. They're going to be wanting to feel that it's more exclusive than that. Obviously, this feeling about advertising changed over time, but that was definitely the sense at the beginning. So my grandfather told me that he was brought up with the belief that the best form of advertising was word of mouth. It's a bit, not different from social media and influencers today. You have an important person talking, either a queen wearing a necklace, everyone said, where's that from? Or at a dinner party, you might turn to your neighbor and say, where's your necklace from? That for them was the best form of advertising. But how do you start that off? How do you get on, how do you get known in the first place? So Pierre was like, right, we need to make our name in New York. This is probably one of the most famous stones in the world. I'm going to buy this stone, a huge risk, by the way, very expensive, still a small jewelry firm at this stage, big cash outflow. I'm going to buy this stone and then I'm going to sell it to this woman. And he already knew who he wanted to sell it to, Evelyn McLean. She was a very wealthy, young, she just married into another very wealthy family. And her and her new husband were on honeymoon in France, and Pierre had bought this stone and shows it to them. And at that stage, she turns it down. She said, no, I'm not really that interested. And Pierre's like, got to sell the stone. So he goes back to America and he resets it into a necklace, the necklace that you see there. And he shows it to her again. He said, will you come into the store? I've got the necklace to show you. And this time she's kind of quite tempted. And she's like, yes, but it's very expensive and whatever. And he tells her, he knows with her that she wants to make an impact. She's a strong woman. She likes being a bit well known. She likes throwing big parties. She likes the attention. He tells her the curse story behind it, thinking that she'll like it, which she does. But she's still wavering. And he says, okay, well, why don't you take it home overnight and just see how you feel? Because he knows, he's very clever, he knows his clients, and he knows that she's very used to receiving gifts, but she's not used to giving them back. So she takes it home, and she actually writes in her memoir that night, all night long that thing winked at me, and by morning I just knew I had to have it. And so she goes to Pierre the next morning and said, okay, I want it. And he said, great, sends her the bill, and she then doesn't pay. And so in the end they have to get lawyers, and then she's like worried about the curse, so she takes it to a church, and apparently there's this whole story in her memoir how she puts it on a red velvet cushion, and she asks the priest to bless the stone, and just as the priest is blessing the stone, thunder strikes the church, and she takes that as a sign that everything is going to be okay, which is weird. And it's not okay. She has terrible things happen in her life. But anyway, she ends up with the stone. She pays Pierre eventually. Cartier ends up losing money on this stone, though, after all the legal expenses, all the time, etc. But it doesn't matter, because this single stone helps make Cartier in New York, because whenever she wears it, which is a lot, and at a party, at a social event, the papers will all say, Evelyn McKay and her cursed hope diamond from Cartier. And suddenly Cartier is making it into the name Cartier. I mean, people didn't even know how to pronounce Cartier in New York. There are all these letters between the brothers writing to taxi drivers to tell them how their clients, or telling hotels how clients should pronounce it. So it was so important for kind of putting Cartier on the grid. And she held these parties where she was the best person, actually, the best kind of influencer in a way. She would put it around the neck of her dog, her Great Dane dog, Mike. So when the people came to her house, they'd see this dog with the diamond. And when she had parties, she'd hide it in the garden and make all her guests play Find the Hope. So it became this incredibly notorious stone, and with it, Cartier's name kind of became part of the vernacular.
Well, I'm going to stick to the celebrity trend there, and we are a bit tight on time, so I'm just going to quickly jump ahead. So here we go. Because I do want to let you guys get some questions in. So harnessing the power of celebrity, huge for Cartier, as we've just heard. Talk us through some of the celebrities throughout Cartier's history, Francesca.
Well, I mean, what's interesting is when you follow jewels, you kind of follow a single stone, I mean, an important stone, you follow the history of the world, really. So you have a kind of, in the early times when Cartier took over, the Grand Duchess of Russia, they had the most money. You've got their Grand Duchess Vladimir and an emerald tiara. She's third from the right on the top. This was one of the pieces that was smuggled out of Russia in the Russian Revolution. Suddenly the Russians can't afford these big jewels anymore, but they're sold back to Cartier. Cartier then sells them to American heiress. So, in America we see, we've got Elizabeth Taylor, we've got Grace Kelly. Later, as I said, with the Great Depression in America, you've got the jewels being sold to the Indian Maharajas. The bottom right is the Maharaja of Patiala, famously 3,000 diamonds in that necklace. Top left of the Maharaja of Kapurthala, who I visited his grandson, the Maharaja, today, and I saw that portrait in his palace, wearing this fantastic emerald turban ornament. And then, over time, film stars, I mentioned Grace Kelly. Film stars when Cartier started out, there were no such thing as film stars. It was kind of royalty who were the people you wanted to dress. Later on, it became film stars. You've got the Duchess of Windsor there. You've got Jackie Kennedy. So, yeah, later on, you're getting men wearing the watches and then women wearing the tank watches, like Jackie Kennedy there. So you can kind of see changing stuff. That's interesting. She's third from the right on the bottom. She's wearing jeans. And so fashions are totally changing. But the point is they're always having something. Cartier always creating something that's recognizably Cartier for their audience.
Absolutely. And photographs beautifully. And on that note, look at these, Sophia. How important has celebrity endorsement been for you and your brand?
It's always amazing to see our designs worn by some of the most amazing superstars in the world. But for me, definitely, from when I was at college, I dreamt of designing shoes that would be worn on red carpets. And in fact, my final project of my degree was we got to design our dream project, and I designed a red carpet collection, and as part of the coursework you had to do a customer profile, so where they live, demographic, what they do for a job, and I did mine on Beyonce and my tutor was so exasperated by me because I just I had just visualized that she was gonna wear my shoes, and my tutor actually gave me a bit of a reality check, and she was like, Sophia, you need to be really well connected to get your shoes on famous people. It's not that easy. And I mean, I didn't have any connections, like a completely ordinary background, but I had great belief that this was going to happen, and you have to just put it into the universe, I think. And I remember when I first started, I designed these shoes and I had little speech bubbles on them, and I put Queen Bee on the speech bubbles, and I designed them pretty much in my head, for Beyonce. And then when they hit the stores, her stylist got in touch requesting a pair, and we didn't have her size, and I was like, no. But luckily one of our stockists did, and they kindly sent them to her for us. But even then, when you send them, you still don't know until you actually see them on their feet. You just don't know. And the Taylor Swift on the red carpet, that's probably got to be my absolute favorite, because a lot of times you'll get the emails from our PR teams, and it's so-and-so's worn the shoes for the Grammys or the Brits, and then you click on the picture and they've got a really long gown on and you can't see the shoes, and then you go through Getty and it's there's not one picture of the shoes. You're like, So to have Taylor Swift, and I think she hadn't been seen on the red carpet for a long time, and then the outfit, everything was just working so sort of harmoniously, and the shoes was so striking, and that was just incredible, because obviously she's got this huge fan base, and then overnight on Twitter, it's all the Swifties were trying to decode the message of the wings, and they're thinking there's some hidden meaning behind them. So yeah, it's just fantastic, because overnight it just opened us up to a whole new audience, and that was probably 8 years after I first launched that shoe. So it's just great, it just sort of breathes life into things, and then we got hundreds of Taylor Swift fans following us. So yeah, it's great.
That's a shoe that has gone through 8 years and looks stunning. Let's have a little look at this tiara, Francesca. I don't know if you can do the maths on how many years we've gone through. Can you tell us?
It was 75 years from start to the time that Kate wore it on her wedding day. So it was a tiara that was made in the 1930s for the British royal family when Jack was running London, but made for who would become George VI, but at that stage he wasn't. He didn't know he'd ever become king then, because of course he didn't know that his brother was going to abdicate for Wallis Simpson, for love basically, and marry Wallis Simpson. So he thought he would always be the younger brother, and wouldn't buy a big tiara. Therefore, it's considered a relatively small Cartier tiara at the time, compared to some of the really big ones, with more extravagant ones. But it survived the test of time, and it was passed down to the Queen, who lent it to her sister and her daughter, and then of course it was the piece that was borrowed on your wedding day in 2011. Fantastic. Yeah, that's
great. Well, just to wrap up, we're just going to close, and then if you have any questions on the language of fashion and what fashion conveys, we can see that through some of Sophia's gorgeous creations here. So this is Wave Your Magic one time, ladies. If you could describe your dream creation, fantasy creation, no holds barred, what would you create, Azza?
What would I create? I think I've already created it. I don't know. I think today my sculptures, I say, wear us. So I've been creating gigantic pieces that we can walk into. And in a way, it is the dress, it is the shoes. All you see is the experience of the mild steel and the sculpture that I create. I suppose the relevance between material, hardness, color is, for me as an artist, is what I try to create as pieces that people can engage with, just like our everyday jewelry or shoes, which one we decide to. I think with art, it is so far from our culture that I wanted it to be viewed in a different light. And I suppose this is why when a lot of people come to my shows, it's about touching, feeling, moving my art and engaging with it in a way, just like a piece of jewelry, a ring or a pendant. And I suppose, yeah, maybe making more bigger sculptures that people can, you know, get into. I made one, and my husband calls it Lady Gaga dress. And literally you stand behind it, and it's a big piece of mild steel. So I suppose it's that kind of engagements and connecting or bridging the gap between art and everyday fashion.
So art you can engage with. Fantastic. Sophia, you make fantastical creations anyway, but if there were no engineering holds barred, what would you produce?
Yeah, I'm not sure that I feel like you know, I feel like I've been designing like my dream creations like for the last 10 years. You know, I get to, especially when I was doing my London Fashion Week shows, because we would create this world, and you know, I had themes like ice queens and fairies and you know, one and I just like I think like I'm quite fortunate in that I actually get to do that,
Anyway.
as a job. Yeah.
No, that's Francesca, now I know you're not a designer. Would it be a dream book? What would be your dream project?
Sorry, microphone. Yes, I always thought, I'm not creative compared to my family who are brilliant artists or whatever, but then actually I guess I found my creative output in writing. And I do absolutely love that. I hope to write more, although it's quite grueling, the writing process.
There's more to come?
Yes.
Yeah? Ladies, you've been incredible. Thank you so much. Now, we have run a little bit over, but I do want to open it up to a couple of questions because I have been hogging everyone. Could we have, let's call it 2 questions. We've got 3. How are we for time? Are we okay? Can I have a microphone, please, over to a raised hand? Thank you. If you could just say your name, it'd be great. Sound? There we go.
Okay, my name is Talal. I'm from Saudi Arabia, King Abdulaziz University. Actually, I have 3 questions, but maybe the time is not enough to say all of them. So I will just say 2 of them. It will be so fast. Okay. So as you are an expert in artist and design, as your experience, how we can be successful designer in business field and design. The second question. Do you think the money it can be enough to build a business without thinking and studying the project in the business and design?
So I think the first question about being artistic and being successful in business, Francesca's quite good at. And I would also say read the book, The Cartiers, because it really, for me as a reader, illustrated that really well. Do you have anything?
Yeah, I worked before in business, really, and so I was looking at the whole story of the Cartiers is how do you build a successful business? And they had a dream to build this leading jewelry firm in the world, but it's very different to have a dream to survive not just pandemic, but 2 world wars, Great Depression. How on earth do you do it? So they were very artistic, and they had this strong artistic sense about what they were going to do and what they refused to compromise on. But of course, that is matched with an understanding of business and being able to adapt. And yeah, I talk a lot more about that in my book.
And maybe Sophia, on the second part, do you need money to grow a business?
Yeah, well, I started a business on an overdraft, so it was like not even real money. So it's just like, I think it's, for me, as a creative and with very minimal sort of Excel spreadsheet skills, or even wanting to, like that, for me is just not in any way my forte, or I have ADHD, so to sit and look at a spreadsheet and try and do any sort of accounting or anything like that, 6 months into starting the business, I was just absolutely just losing it. So I think I would say if you are a creative, fundamentally creative, imaginative person, and that is what you love doing and you want to create, then I think it's really important to find a business partner or somebody. I have my husband, so 6 months in, my husband, he'd been helping me, like he had his own business at the time. He was an electrical engineer, so I'm sure like it's not his dream to be working in ladies' shoes, but we had this amazing opportunity. My first collection had sold far beyond what I could ever have imagined. I was in some of the most amazing doors in the world, and we had no experience and didn't know what we were going to do. So having somebody that's as emotionally invested as you in the business, handling that side of it, and then you meet in the middle, and then you can discuss, I really want to do this shoe or make this sort of product, or and then you've got that, do we need it? Even when I started my mini collection, because I was pregnant with my daughter, my husband was like, this is going to be a complete distraction, like it's it's the lower price point, it's going to be, he didn't think it was a good idea. So it's like you have to be able to kind of meet in the middle and work out what is the best sort of steps to take strategically, balancing the creative and emotional side, but also what is like the best thing for the business. So yeah, I would say having a great partner is important.
Couple more, one or two more. Could we have those mics, please? Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Jalal Malki from Al University, Saudi Arabia. And Sophia, I think you mentioned something about how you went to a design art school. How did learning design help benefit and accommodate your business?
Well, I think the school that I went to, Cordwainers College, is the shoemaking part of London College of Fashion. So for me as a shoe designer, I think it's like crucial to understand how shoes are made, and in understanding that and making my own shoes and learning that process, you learn the sort of technical limitations of shoes, and there are many, and then also I would say the ideal thing is a combination of studying and also getting out there and getting work experience. Because for me, I did work experience at high street companies. I did work experience for designer companies, all whilst I was doing my degree courses. And that was amazing because I understood how every stitch, every edge finish, like every different component and thing that you add to a shoe is going to impact the final costing. So I think all of those things are really important in understanding. Yeah, you can design the most amazing elaborate shoe in the world, but what price point do you want it to hit? Where do you want to sit in the market? So all of those things will impact that. So getting that understanding quite early on is important.
Thanks, Sophia. Right, two more, and then I promise we're going to move to the signing. Here, and then front row, we'll have the mic after. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lulu Al-Bouanen from Ifat University in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. My question is for Azza. Could you share one of your most unique, bizarre, or meaningful custom designs?
Great question.
Well, I think a lot of the pieces that I've done over the years, whether having the oud or the pearls, I suppose I've worked with materials that people did not expect to have in jewelry, especially in modern days. Cultural pearls are available. Why am I looking for 6 years for natural pearls? I wanted to say a true story. So I stay true to what I want. And I'm very persistent with that. And I think that also gave me the difference between my work and anybody else. And, continuing the journey, never stopping with the first closed door, all that definitely impacts the journey itself. But I think in the same time, if I didn't have a product that I was earning money from, I wouldn't be able to do those things that people I know are not everybody would buy. So I think, having the balance of, something that is affordable for everybody. So I was at a point selling in airlines. I was selling, to tennis tournaments, horse races. I was doing so many different things on the side to support my, elaborate ideas and crazy thoughts and ideas of pieces of whether jewelry or sculpture. Everything, needs money in the end of the day. So being true to yourself and finding a way to reach the dream you want.
Perfect. And final question here on the front row, please.
Hi, I'm Sada, and I'm asking this question for my daughter, Yasmin, who's currently studying at the London College of Fashion. And she's looking for an internship right now, and she wants to know what qualities would help someone like her stand out. How does she get her foot in the door in the industry in London? And what are the kind
I think that's one for Sophia.
Yes. I think, when I'm hiring interns, I'm really just looking for somebody that's like super passionate and has like a great energy and just wants to be present and be part of a team and just like is like hungry to learn. I think obviously like a portfolio is great to have, but I think I would probably say like try and get a phone number and pick up the phone, because everybody's like sends DMs or emails, or I think if you to there's something that is very important, I think, about like a human connection. And if I know when I first I did a project, I won a bursary for River Island, which is a high street store in the UK, and I really wanted my shoes to go into Grazia magazine, and I just rung them up. And I managed to get hold of the junior features editor, and I just sort of explained what I was doing, explained the collection, and I was like, I really want to. And I never in a million years thought that she would put it in Grazia, but she did. So I think sometimes to make a human connection and actually speak to somebody is it's not easy to ignore someone like that. Whereas if you send a DM or email or just a CV, I think, or send a CV with something else. I remember I hired an intern once that sent pictures of her designs on marshmallows. But it was just like, that's so cute. Like she's got, great, it's just a bit unexpected. You've got great ideas to get people's attention. So, I would say try and do something a bit different. And, that would be my advice.
Thanks, Sophia. And I think that wraps things up really nicely, because it shows how ultimately everything is about human connection, whether it is the most elaborate tiara, and those stories are told so beautifully in Francesca's books, to everything that you ladies create. It is about telling stories, and that's why it is so relevant here at the Emirates Festival of Literature. Now, Sophia and Francesca will be signing books, I believe, outside, and the books are divine, so please do take some time to meet them, have your books signed. Before I let them go, and I have kept them for a very long time, thank you so much to you, the audience, for coming and spending the afternoon with us. Thank you to the volunteers, to the AV guys. Thanks, everyone. Thank you to our title sponsor, Emirates Airline, to our founding partner, Dubai Culture, the parent company, Emirates Literature Foundation. We were very lucky today to have a session sponsor from Dubai Calendar and Dubai Duty Free. And of course, finally, one final time, thank you so much to the speakers. So please do head outside where the book signings will take place with the beautiful books ready. Thank you, ladies.